Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Swati and we are discussing literary theories. In the previous videos, we talked about structuralism and post-structuralism. We discussed important critiques, their important works, and of course the questions that have been asked before. In this video, we'll talk about the third literary theory, and that is new criticism. Now, let me give you a brief introduction of what new criticism is and what these critics does. So basically, new criticism is an approach in which the focus is on the work rather than the author, the biography of author, or the surrounding social, political, economic features of the surrounding. A very good definition is in this book, A Glossary of Literary Terms by M.H. Abram, and he says that for a new critique, proper concern of literary criticism is not with the external circumstances or effect or historical position of a work, but with a detailed consideration of the work itself as an independent entity. What he meant by this is that the new critics, they take this work, they take any work with the approach that they will focus on the work, that which means what is written, what is the text, what are the words written, instead of paying attention to what age the author belonged, what was his mindset when he was writing this particular work, what were the social political background, and all so historical position and all those things. So these things are not given any attention. सिर्फ जो लिखा गया है, जो शब्द लिखे गए हैं, उन पर पूरा फोकस होता है, बजाय कि आसपास क्या हो रहा है या राइटर के दिमाग में क्या चल रहा था. So this is new critics approach. This is how they function. This is how they evaluate any form of literary work, any piece of literary work. Let me explain it to a little bit more. There is these words by T.S. Eliot, and he says that primarily as a poetry should be treated primarily as poetry and not another thing. So he says that a poem should be treated as a poem and not something else. And the first law of criticism which John Crowe Ransom gives is that it shall be subjective, shall cite the nature of the object, and shall recognize the autonomy of the work itself as existing for its own sake, which means work for work's sake. That is, everything that one needs to know is in the work. वर्क को वर्क के तरीके से ही ले, उसको एक ऑटोनॉमस, एक इंडिविजुअल बॉडी की तरह ट्रीट करे, बजाय कि हर आसपास की चीज को उसमें इन्वॉल्व करने के. In analyzing and evaluating a particular work, the reference to the biography and temperament and personal experience of the author, to the social condition at the time of its production, or its psychological and moral effect on the reader, all these things should not be considered. As I just told you that every new critic, they approach a work with this reference, that the psychological background or the effect that the work has on readers, or the condition which was around the reader, or when it was published, when the work was published, all these things should not be considered. They do not affect the meaning of the work according to new critics. Then they further says that literature is conceived to be a special kind of language which is different from science. The language of science or reason is different from that of literature. Therefore, figure of speech, symbols, words, they all should be given more importance than other things. So, these new critics, they were of the opinion that meaning, extensive meaning of a work should be taken out. एक वर्ड, हर एक वर्ड का पूरा डीप मीनिंग पता होना चाहिए, and that should be the focus, and that is how one should read any particular work. This is what these new critics said. Then they also focused on close reading. Close reading is analysis of complex interrelationship and ambiguities of the verbal and figurative components, which means that work, as you know, it all means same, that work should be read as a work. It should be complete in itself, and the figurative and the symbolic meanings, all of them should be taken into consideration. Close reading means, close in the work, as in read the lines, read the words, and the word, the text, whatever is written in this book, whatever the text we have, that should be sufficient. I should not care what M.H. Abraham was going through, what was his personal life, was he poor, what kind of education he got, about his relationships and all those things, or what kind of social background condition was at that particular time. My concern should be that he has written this and this about new criticism. So this is what close reading is. Also, they say that we should pay more attention to images, to words, to symbols, to metaphors, and all those things, instead of character and tone, character and theme, and other things, and genre. Like you said, it doesn't even matter what kind of theme is in the particular novel or what the plot is. We should be focusing on the words. Words are everything for these new critics, and they are of the opinion that only these words should be given utmost importance. So basically, this is what new criticism is all about. New criticism actually appeared in America in 1929, and I.A. Richard was the first one to use the term practical criticism. I.A. Richards, Ivor Armstrong Richard, he was the first one who came up with the term of practical criticism, and actually he has an essay with this name. Then we have John Crowe Ransom. John Crowe Ransom, he is another critique of new, belonging to this particular approach, and he published a work with the name of New Criticism, and he is the one who coined this term. And this happened in 1941. So John Crowe Ransom in 1941 came up with this work, New Criticism, and that is how he coined the term New Criticism. And this thought school of criticism, they were influenced by T.S. Eliot and Matthew Arnold. So these new critics, they were influenced by T.S. Eliot and Matthew Arnold, and they believe in close reading, as I just told you, as I mentioned earlier. So close reading was their approach. That is how the deep analysis of how the text works, analysis of words, rhythms, symbols, metaphors, similes, literary, all these kind of literary dimensions. These were their main focus. So this is what new criticism is. Now, there are many critiques who were a part of this group, and we'll talk about all of them in detail now. So we'll start with this first critic, whose name is William Empson. William Empson, the spelling would be E-M-P-S-O-N. William Empson, and he was born in 1906 and he died in 1940. He wrote 4 major works, and I'll mention them, and make sure you write them down in your notebook. And they are 7 types of ambiguity, structure of complex words, some version of pastorals, and Milton's God. Let me repeat them for you. They are 7 types of ambiguity, structure of complex words, some version of pastoral, and Milton's God. So he wrote these 4 important works, and in his work 7 types of ambiguity, he actually he's saying that words or references in a poem are ambiguous because the meaning of a word keeps on changing in different contexts. So it is ambiguous. Those words are ambiguous if presented coherently, carry multiple meaning that can enrich readers' appreciation of the work. What he means to say is that in a particular poetry or in a work, there are some words which are ambiguous, which have more than one meaning. So instead of taking them as a mistake or taking them in a wrong way, those words can give us new kind of meanings, and they can change our approach toward that particular work, towards that particular work. So it gives us new insights into the work. According to him, each word, phrase, text, etc. can be interpreted in several ways that depend on the person who is reading them. So it can be translated into several ways. We have metaphor, we have antithesis, we have allegory, and so many other things. So this is what he talks about in 7 types of ambiguity, and how these ambiguities are actually beneficial for the readers, and how they can come up with new perspectives and new ideas. There is a question that they ask about 7 types of ambiguity in NET exam, and that was what 7 types of ambiguity has. So it is an analysis of poetic ambivalence. These ambiguities that Empson mentioned, he took those ambiguities in reference to a poem. कि एक पोयम में ये एम्बिग्विटीज कैसे अफेक्ट करती है, एक पोम को कैसे हम अलग अलग नजरिए से पढ़ सकते हैं, ये था 7 types of ambiguity में. So they are in reference to poem, and this is what they asked in NET exam. Another work of William Empson is Milton's God, and in Milton's God, he actually talks about the same thing, that the background should not be taken into consideration. He talked about how Milton, being a religious person or not a religious person, and if that his religious bendings affected his work or not, affected Paradise Lost or not, and all those things. So he describes view on Milton and his views on Christianity, Milton's Christianity. So these are the questions that they have asked, and this is about William Empson. We have a few more theorists, we have a few more critiques, which we'll talk about in coming videos, so make sure you watch them. And this was an introductory video, and we talked about William Empson, and I hope I'm making it easy for you. I hope the videos are helpful, and if you feel they are, and if you feel you want to know more, make sure you subscribe and make sure you share these videos with your friends, and just keep on reading, keep on studying. Wish you a very happy day.